All right, Chris, we have coordinators. Josh McDaniels, the return of Josh McDaniels, as I noted on social media. Time is a flat circle. What year is this? Josh McDaniels comes back to New England for the third time as the offensive coordinator. And I'd be curious to get your take on this because I think that there are pros and cons to everything here. I think that the pros are numerous. When you look at his background, when you look at his resume, I'd be interested in getting into maybe some of the cons. But first of all, let me get your initial thoughts on the return of Josh McDaniels.
Micky D's back in Foxborough. I'm pumped. So I was back in Foxborough. What was it? 2 weeks. They played the Chargers. The abomination of a game where had to sit through that. But I was sitting next to Brian Hoyer signing autographs and taking pictures with some of the fans, and I was curious where Josh was, and he was still in Foxborough. I was like, oh, he's coming back. I was like, if this goes the way that everyone thinks it's going to go, we're going to hire Vrabel. I think I foresaw this, the future, with like a month ago of what was going to happen. But I'm excited. I'm excited for a number of reasons. I think Josh is a phenomenal offensive coordinator. I think that he is one of the best that I've ever been around. I think that he's going to be extremely good for Drake Maye. I think that he is going to help Dre understand the game of football more than he's thought that he could understand the game of football. It's going to be challenging for Josh because of how young this team is. And I think I say that for a number of reasons. He's the ever since when he was in New England, he was surrounded by guys. He was surrounded by Tom, Gronk, Jules, Randy Moss, Danny, all these guys that had been in the offense, knew the offense, and could run his offense effectively, knew what he wanted. He's walking into a locker room where nobody knows what he wants. And Josh is extremely picky, right? He wants things done a very specific way to a fault, right? Of how he acts around players. But he's going to have his hands full with a young offense. So, but at the end of the day, listen, man, I'm excited for the young guys. It's kind of like a fresh start, I think, and I hope that they kind of the organization see. I'm not talking about I'm talking about two Baker Polk, right? The guys that
Mhm.
everyone's just like, get the hell out of here. They've had one season and didn't go the way that things planned. Shit happens. Like fresh start. Hope that they have a new energy about them. I think that bringing Josh in think to be honest with you, I think it becomes more. I know like everyone's talking about New England, it's not a great place. No one wants to come here in free agency, the high taxes, cold weather, but I listen, Josh's resume speaks for itself as an offensive coordinator. And so does as Vrabel. So I like the squad that we're putting together. I really do. I
If
do.
you're Josh, or maybe if you're getting a chance to talk to Polk and Baker, how would you address them? What would you say? Look, these are the things you need to look for moving forward. If you want to have a chance to succeed in a Josh McDaniels offense, here are the three things that you have to keep in mind if you want to be your best in this New England offense with Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator.
I think for Josh, it's very simple. It's say, hey, listen, last year was last year. I had no part of that. I think that you guys are talented players. I hope that they're good. They're good individuals. I mean, I think they kept their heads on straight pretty much throughout the entire year with everything that was going on. Right? They could have totally went off the reservation and started going out in social media and talking shit and saying like, "I hate this place. I don't want to play football anymore." Like, no. So I think it's very simple. It's like, hey, if you're gonna play for me, details. It is all about details. No one's questioning your ability. No one's questioning that you're an athlete, you're a football player, you got drafted for a reason. But if you're going to play for me, details. I am going to be There's so much detail in his offense, right? And that's another thing that we're going to have to talk about is this offense is not black and white. There are expectations. He is not going to dumb it down for anyone. He is not going to slow down for anyone. Day one install is going to fly by, and if these kids are not in there taking notes and studying this playbook on their own, then they're going to get left behind. And that's just the reality of it. And I think that was something that I quickly I mean, listen, I was warned, forewarned before I got in there, but I was told like, hey, you're gonna have to learn this offense. And that's all, there's not much to it. It's not like this chess game where we don't know what the next move is gonna be, right? It's dude, you're gonna be given a playbook, study the damn playbook. And that goes for everyone because
Mhm.
the detail is not just in the receivers, it's in the quarterback room, it's in the running back room, it's in the tight end room. I mean, tight ends are expected to know every single position as a receiver. They're expected to know who to block, when to block. They're supposed to know, in the run game, pass game, everything. That goes for the running backs too. Everyone's role just gets expanded as long as you're capable of understanding the detail and what you're supposed to do. If you can only do one thing, then you're only going to do that one thing and probably not going to be on the field that much. But if you can do multiple things, then you're going to be then the playbook opens up for Josh, it opens up for Drake, it opens up for the game plan. So I just with Josh, man, I mean, listen, he is going to game plan the hell out of this 2025 season, and he's going to put guys in positions to win, and he's going to put guys in positions that know what they're doing and be effective and help Drake and help this offense put points on the board.
Brady used to use the phrase "the train's leaving the station," usually at the end of August, and it
Come on,
was
bro.
yeah, it was more often than not it was in an injury context. Like if you haven't been on the field, you're not the train's leaving the station, the season's starting. If you're not on it, it's going to be awful tough to catch up. But it also works in this context, I think specifically. How much of a difference are we going to see in the offense from day to day, week to week, game to game, as opposed to this past season? And I'm not talking about production wise, but just personnel. And I know a lot of the personnel is dependent on how quickly those guys get on board, but how are the changes going to be manifested on game day? How will fans be able to recognize this is a Josh McDaniels offense as opposed to an Alex Van Pelt offense?
I think that you're just there's so much unknown right now for who we bring in free agency, what how well these guys can digest this playbook and understand what's going on. But I think you're going to see a multitude of different personnels, and that's multiple tight end sets, one tight end, multiple receiver sets, running backs at being asked to do more. I think that you're going to see a lot more, Josh kind of setting up more of like this play action type stuff and a lot, he is going to whatever is in the playbook that is going to work for that specific team and that specific defense that they're playing against. The playbook is going to essentially change throughout the year. We're going to have our core plays that we're very good at, and we're going to do those every single week. But then every single week that the formations are going to change, the personnels are going to change, and some of the plays are going to change and little nuances, right? It's more of, hey, we're going to put, instead of having, Polk on the outside doing this, where he's going to be on the inside doing this. We're going to have Pop is going to thrive as long as he is able to do this and learn the offensive. He's going to be. Listen, if I'm Pop Douglas,
Mhm.
I'm watching Julian. I'm watching myself. I'm watching Danny. I'm watching Wes Bulker because guess what? That's you, bro. Like that's the slot receiver eats in this offense.
Mhm.
But they're asked to do a lot. Like so he's gonna have you're gonna see a lot more motion. You're gonna see a lot more pre-snap stuff going on so that Drake can diagnose and see defenses and be like, hey, we're gonna go to the huddle with two calls. Man call, zone call. Right. So I think we're gonna see a lot more of that. And that's only, that's gonna help Drake and how he learns and progresses and can be able to read defenses. And that goes for the rest of the team too, man. It's not like, there's a accountability that's placed on the receivers or the pass catchers, right? Cover two, your route can change. But Josh is not on the sideline saying, hey, it's cover two, this is what you're running. Like you have to see that. So that's again, these kids are going to learn a lot. They're going to learn a lot from Josh. I think they're going to learn some from Mike, from Vrabes. It's how well are they able to take all that on. are they able to digest it? Are they able to learn it? And then obviously, are they able to do it on the field? It's going to be interesting. But again, I think I think it brings a little bit of energy. It's new. Josh has been there. He knows how to do it, win football games. I would be excited if I was an offensive player in New England with Josh coming.
If we're going to steer into this nostalgia era again, back to kind of old school Patriots football with Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels, why not bring back Wes Welker as the wide receivers coach?
Shit, why not?
He
Right?
was
Hey,
just let go,
get the
and I'm thinking of the Pop Douglas thing that let's do it, man. You know what? Let's go.
get the
You know
band
what?
back together.
I want to bring, I want to, keep Dante Hightower around. Literally, the whole thing is run by ex-players. Not the whole thing, but you know what I mean. To be able to get
Yeah.
back into that sense of this is how we do it. This is how we approach our business. This is how you win football games, especially the close football games that we've seen.
Listen, Josh, if you need help in the receiver room, I'll come up to freaking Foxborough and get this train back on track. I'm ready to go. I'll get these guys right. But yeah, I mean, Wes, I mean, he's been doing it for a long time. I don't necessarily know how his relationship is with Josh because again, there's a lot that Josh demands
Hmm.
as and on the offensive side of the ball from the coach's perspective. He's going to expect his coaches to have his play, their rooms prepared, ready to go, and know exactly what they're doing. And because he will be, he can get pissed, man. Like if guys don't know what the hell they're doing, he's looking at the player, but in reality, he's looking at the coach, and he's
Hmm.
like, dude, that's on you to get your guys prepped and ready to go. Like Chad always had us dialed, man. We had extra walkthroughs, extra meetings. Ivan was, in the running back room, man. He was amazing. I loved Ivan so much. He was one of my most favorite coaches to be around. But this dude, I mean, going over, I mean, he'd be in the damn hallway walking with people and like going over the scripts for that, for the practice, making sure that everyone from practice squad to James White to, LeGarrette, whoever was running whoever was going to be in, know exactly what they were going to do on every single play. So, I think that's also something to talk about is what's the supporting cast, right? We
Yeah.
have the two offensive coordinator or offense defense, and we have a head coach, but what's the supporting cast going to look like now?
Hmm.
Because those guys are equally as important in making this whole organization run smoothly and effectively because they're doing a lot of the film breakdown. They're making sure that the day-to-day stuff is going well. The cards are ready. The practices, run smoothly. So I think that's going to be something else to kind of keep a close eye on of who are we bringing in as a supporting cast here as well for on both sides of the ball.
There's already been a lot of turnover on the coaching staff, the assistant coaches. We've seen Scott Peters go to Cincinnati. We saw the defensive line coach, Jerry Montgomery, go to Cincinnati. The assistant defensive line coach, I believe, went to Appalachian State. So it feels like they're clearing out a lot of the assistant coaches. I know the tight ends coach, running backs coach. The one thing the two things that I know that I think we're going to see in terms of maybe a carryover that we didn't see a lot last year. We talked about a carryover from like 10 years ago. The fullback is coming back, and I wonder if we're going to see more designed runs from Drake. Now, I know that that's not exactly been a staple of a Josh McDaniels offense because he had Tom Brady. And look, we all love Tom Brady, but at the same time, he was not the fastest guy in the world. Drake Maye brings a different skill set. And I think that's one of the things that people were kind of clamoring for here last year. And you look at guys like Jalen Hurts, you look at guys like Josh Allen. If you have a quarterback who can move a little bit, like Drake May, maybe you want to start to incorporate some of that stuff moving forward.
Yeah, I think that you'll have him outside of the pocket. I think I don't know if I think you have to kind of walk that line gracefully, right? Because this is your quarterback. He has taken some hits. He's not really there in knowing exactly how to run that well in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, he was taking some unnecessary stuff, man. You want to protect him as much as possible. But yeah, I think getting him outside the pocket, letting him kind of be on the move a little bit, use his athleticism and his feet to see if you can get guys open and maybe create a little bit more of something that we didn't have a lot with Tom, right? Or I mean, Tom did with his athleticism and how fast he was, right? He created a lot of plays, but within the pocket,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like and because he was just so well at moving around in the pocket and stepping up and knowing where to move and such. But now you're talking about getting a guy outside the pocket. I mean, it's tough to cover a guy for more than a couple of seconds in the field. So you see all these down the field plays that Josh Allen's making, Mahomes, Hurts, all these guys, and they're just guys are getting open and just kind of playing off of their quarterback. I mean, there could be some of that, right? But that's also, were we able to get him outside the pocket effectively? Are we able to protect well enough? So it's that's another piece of this puzzle that I know Josh is going to do a lot of work in, and he's going to really have that offensive line and the protection stuff like very dialed, very, very dialed.
Other than Drake, who is going to be the most impacted by this move on the offensive side of the ball?
I think I do think it's the receivers. I really do. I mean, listen, it's like I said before, you either get it or you don't. And Josh is not going to hold your hand through it, and nor should he. This is the NFL, man. This is your job. And there's a certain expectation that comes with Josh and his offense. So you're either going to take that responsibility on and learn the offense and know exactly what to do, where to be, and all the different formations, or you're not. And that's going to determine whether or not how long you're going to last in New England. But if I'm these young guys, again, you have the film, right? I am going back and watching from 20, let's just call it 2010 to 2017, 2018. Like I'm watching all that film, watching Wes, Jules, Rand, how are they doing all these things? Because this is how Josh is going to ask. And he's going to be showing you the clips of this. This is how we run a dig route. This is how we're going to wide release on a curl. This is how the, you know, choice route is going to be run. You're going to see 9,000 clips of Julian run a choice route versus every single coverage that you have. So yeah, I do. I think that the receivers are going to be impacted dramatically on this, but it's a lot of it relies on how well they're able to learn this offense and then have it translate onto the field.
We talked about a lot of the pros in this decision to go back to Josh McDaniels. What are some of the cons? Maybe there's the idea that the young wide receivers don't get it and they have to
Yeah.
bring new guys in here. What are some of the other possibilities this could, I don't want to say blow up in their face, but just not work with a roster currently constituted, the way it
Well,
looks?
I'm not going to say that it's going to blow up in their face because I think that Josh will get it figured out. I think the one thing that was sometimes frustrating with Josh was just how picky he was, and if he really it felt personal at times where if you didn't do the right thing, it was almost like you were letting him down. And you felt that way if you walked in on a Monday and it's like you see Josh and he's just like fucking doesn't say a word to you. You're just like, God dang, like I'm gonna have to do something this week to get this guy back on the side, which is fine, man. I mean, listen, man, he's a competitor, bro, and he coached with Brady and Wes and Jules and Gronk and all these guys, and he's had so much success, right? His expectation, man, is gonna be through the roof for these kids. So I think that's something that he's going to have to deal with himself. Is listen, you are going to be dealing with some younger guys and guys that might not have learned an offense or been in an offense like this. And so I think when I talk about you know his leash here. I think he had a very short leash with everyone when he coached in New England in the past. I think he's got to lengthen that a little bit and just kind of give guys a little bit of time, right? And I'm not saying a lot of time. I'm not saying like when August hits, you got to know your stuff. But from day one install, Like let's get these guys going so that they feel confident enough to want to learn the offense, to want to be out there, right? So, I think he's got to be careful with, having expecting too much of the young guys, but then also knowing who can he place, where can I apply the pressure to, right? Can I apply it to Pop? Is Pop going to be my guy? Right? Is Kendrick going to be the guy? Like, is he
Mhm.
going to be the guy that I place all this pressure on to make sure that all the offense and kind of lead by example, sort of thing? Is Drake going to be the guy that he's going to be like, hey, you got to go out here and get your guys going, right? Like, is he going to be the guy? So, there's listen, there are some cons. I think there are so many more pros that outweigh the cons with Josh, and I do. I think that it's going to be it's going to be I think it's going to be a good thing for Drake and for this offense. I do. I really do think so.
That kind of, you touched on something that I want to expand on a little bit here. Do you think he is going to be a different offensive coordinator in overall temperament, approach, style, technique for Mike Vrabel, as opposed to the guy he was with before in Bill Belichick? Or is that just growth, maturation, getting older, kind of evolving as a human being?
I think there's a little bit of, you live and you learn type of thing, and I would imagine it doesn't seem like Vrabel's the type of guy to beat around the bush and be kind of not transparent. So I think it's going to be very clear to him of what his role is going to be on this team. And Vrabel's not coming in and asking him advice about, how to run the day to day or practice schedule. I think it's like, hey, this is your offense, right? I'm going to trust you wholeheartedly on offense, but there may be situations where I'm going to tell you, hey, I want to go for it, or I want to kick a field goal, or I want to, do this sort of thing at, at this junction or this point of the game, and you're going to have to be okay with that. You're not a head coach anymore, and you are now an offensive coordinator, and you work for me. Right? So it seems to me like Vrabel is that type of guy that's going to be very upfront and transparent, and I think that works best, right? If you don't, as an offensive coordinator, you kind of want to know how your head coach wants to approach football games. You'd be like, hey, Braves is going to want to go for it on fourth and short, or fourth and three, fourth and
Mhm.
four. So I need to be prepared for that and have a whole list of play calls that I want to be able to run in these situations and be the play calls that Drake feels comfortable with, my offense feels comfortable with, and that I know that can be effective on the field. So, but that's going to come from them just being around each other more and learning each other's kind of tendencies of how we're going to go approach games, and that's on them, man. We don't know how that's going to happen. That's going to happen behind closed doors, behind in their own meetings, and obviously, having the right personnel is going to be the biggest thing for New England.
I have never seen, at least off the top of my head, I've never seen a coach with the sort of career arc that Josh McDaniels has had,
Yeah.
going back and forth from offensive coordinator to head coach, offensive coordinator, head coach, and then returning to the same place time and again. The only one that kind of felt similar, and I could be completely off base with this, was Norv Turner.
Yeah. Yeah. North bounced around a lot.
Yeah, and he kind of bounced around a little bit, was an offensive coordinator, kind of came back to some places, and
Yeah.
really was a guy who garnered some respect around the league. But I was just trying to think of a guy that Josh reminded me of when you look at what he's been able to do. And I'm also curious from your perspective, when we talked about some of the cons, and we'll kind of start to wrap up here in a minute, but why do you think he hasn't worked as a head coach before? Is it some of that perfectionist? Is it some of that idea of like, look, he's coached Brady, he coached, Wes and Gronk, and when he goes somewhere else, he tries to install that system. A lot of people will say, look, he's a Belichick guy, and Belichick guys just, try and replicate the Belichick system, and it doesn't work without Bill Belichick in charge. I'm curious, as a guy who played for him, why maybe it didn't work in Vegas and Denver.
I think there's a lot of, what worked in New England for so many years is not necessarily going to work in another place, because trying to establish that sort of culture in a completely different organization and different players, it doesn't always work, and we've seen it not work time and time again. I think that there's definitely a little bit of his, like you said, right? He's been around some of the best, and he's got this, you know, unrealistic, I'll call it unrealistic expectation of other people to do what Tom did or do what Gronk does or Julian. And I think that maybe to a fault has kind of hurt him, where in the places that he's gone. And listen, it's tough being a head coach to be able to manage every single day to day an entire team and what's going on, special teams, defense, this, that, and the other. I think that, listen, Josh, he is a phenomenal offensive coordinator, and when he has that to focus on solely, I think that's where he thrives. I do. I think that there was just he had too much going on. And I think that it was, probably too much kind of on one side of the ball where he was in Denver and Vegas. And I think that he would just get frustrated if, things weren't going well on the other side and as well on the offensive side of things. And I think that just kind of trickled on throughout the team. And, it just, the wrong message was being sent. At least that's what it sounds like from hearing what guys were, playing underneath him. But as an offensive coordinator, man, I mean, listen, you can't argue his success, right? And his resume kind of speaks for itself. But again, it's going to be an interesting task for him to kind of take on with a second year quarterback and a young locker room. You know, I got to imagine we're going to bring in some older and some veteran free agents here, but again, still, those are going to be new guys that are going to be learning the exact offense just like the young guys are. So again, it's going to be a race to how quickly can these guys pick up all this stuff, and that is going to dictate really what he's going to, how much can he open up this playbook for Drake? Where can we call? How many formations can we run into a game with? So, what the type of personnel are we going to be good at and run? So, this offseason is going to be crucial, for this offense. Crucial, so, and it's great that we're going to have what is like an extra couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
That they get to come back with a new coach and everything. So, that's it's good for them that they're going to have that extra time.
All right, last McDaniels related question for me today. If you're sitting down with Drake Maye tomorrow, give him three things that he needs to keep in mind when it comes to building a successful relationship with Josh McDaniels, on or off the field.
um, Thick skin. Don't you're gonna have to check that sensitivity at that front door when you walk into that building because you're gonna watch a lot of Tom Brady, and you're gonna watch how to do it, and if you don't do it the right way, uh, he's gonna let you know, right? And again, I don't know how Van Pelt was, and I don't know how Drake's been coached, but Josh is not the type of guy that's going to beat around the bush. He's going to be very dramatic with his facial expressions and the way that he coaches the game because he wants it done a specific way. So, check that sensitivity at the door and just expect Josh's expectations to be through the roof for you. So just come right at work. I think the more that you can communicate with him on and off the field, I think the better your relationship is going to be. I saw the guys that thrived with Josh were the guys that were able to sit down and have lunch with him, right? The guys that were able to have a conversation with him off the field, whether it was about football or whether it wasn't about football, right? Josh is the family man too. He's got a life outside of football that he like generally very, very much cares about. And he's got kids and he is a family man first. I'll tell you that much. For as much as work as he puts into this, he doesn't. It's not just football, 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 football. So if you're able to kind of connect with him on another level, I think that's only going to help the relationship between Drake and Josh. And I think the other thing is Josh – he's a big advocate of what are our goals? Who are my leaders? He kind of created this whole leadership program when we were in there, making sure that he had guys in specific rooms that we would all meet together and we would all talk about what do we need to do? What do we need to do this week or this season? And I think he's gonna, for Drake, take that on, man. Put that on your shoulders. You were drafted here for a reason. We want you to be this, franchise quarterback and turn into this unbelievable player, which you have all the capabilities of doing. And I think that Josh can help you get there. So, don't let, Josh's expectations and the way that he coaches the game or the way, the day-to-day stuff get in the way of that, right? Understand that he only wants the best for you. He only wants the best for the team and the best for this offense to try to go out there and win football games. So understanding that can make the transition go a lot smoother, than maybe, you're thinking if all of a sudden he's like, oh, why is this guy on me so much? Like, nah, man, he's on you because he wants you to be good. He wants you to chase greatness and be the best that you can be. And if you can understand that, you're gonna be all right.
Is he a coffee drinker at all? Like what is
Yeah,
Josh
I
like?
feel like all in the NFL to be a coach, you have to be addicted to caffeine. I feel
Like
like that's actually a requirement.
like if Drake offered to
uh,
buy him like a large ice regular every day or something like that.
I don't know if he's a Dunkin' guy, but he's definitely a coffee guy. I'll tell
Okay.
you, they all are. Everyone's a coffee guy.
I know I know
You know what? Find out what type of coffee he likes. I'll find out for you, and then
okay. Okay. We'll get to the bottom. I don't know.
We'll give Drake a little inside information
There
on
we
what type.
go. I didn't know if he was more of a coffee guy. I know a lot of coaches are Red Bull guys. Although those are more special teams guys who are the Red Bull guys in my
Yeah, got a
experience.
couple screws loose in there. Josh is definitely he's definitely more of a coffee guy.
All right. We'll get to the bottom of that for Drake
Yeah.
between now and the start of OTA. So Chris Hogan, by the way, we're still, I had to make my picks for the Globe before we wrap up here. We're still with the Eagles and the Bills heading into this weekend.
Yeah, we are. We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keeping our fingers crossed. It's going to be like the narrowest of margins, but we're still with the Eagles and the Bills.
Thanks. Yes. Go Bills. Go
All right.
Bills.
Chris Hogan, take care, my friend. Take care, and we will talk again next week.